Hey everyone, this is Peter of Cobra Kai Kompanion. This interview is with Erin Dangar from July 31st, 2018. Ever since Cobra Kai's debut on Netflix, we've been slowly putting the interview up on our YouTube channel. This is interview number 8.
Hi, this is Erin Dangar, Counselor Blatt from Cobra Kai. And instead of playing Fortnite, maybe try listening to TV Ate My Brain.
Welcome to TV Ate My Brain, the official TV podcast of Core Temp Arts, the Cobra Kai edition. And I'm your host, Peter. And today we have a very special episode, another interview. Today I speak with Miss Erin Dangar, who played Counselor Blatt. And what was particularly special about this episode for me was she has lived such a full life. She talks about playing in a band, some of the other work she has done to include playing a detective in the documentary true crime show called Murder Comes to Town, and obviously Cobra Kai. We find out a backstory of Counselor Blatt as well, which I think has been on a lot of people's minds. So she does answer that, and she was just a joy to speak with and has so much wealth of knowledge and just a very, very great person to speak to. And without further ado, this is our conversation.
Hello?
Hello, Ms. Dangar.
Yes.
It's Peter.
Hey. Yeah.
It's a hobby. It fills a certain void for me, and I love movies and TV.
Well, it's great, and you're really good at it, so I'm glad that you're doing it, finding time for
that.
it. So
that means a
we
lot
all
to
have
me.
to do that with our creative endeavors. We have to find time. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've already kind of started talking, so we might as well just go ahead and jump right into it.
Sure.
Now, I did a little bit of research, and I know that you kind of started getting entertainment at a pretty young age. And music-wise, was that one of the first things you started doing, was playing instruments, or?
Yes, my mom signed me up for piano lessons when I was somewhere between 5 and 6. We're a little fuzzy on when that actually started, but we had a piano in our house, and I used to play with it. And she thought it would be a good idea. I started with the Suzuki method, which was great. It teaches you to learn a lot of things by ear, and that has been just invaluable to me in music over the years. So I can, in a lot of cases, not every time, but I can pretty much pick out a song that I want to learn and just learn it by hearing it. Now, I'm terrible at reading music, which was the other part of Suzuki I was supposed to learn, but I kind of got rebellious at a point and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to play bass and learn bass guitar. And so the piano fell by the wayside at some point.
Wow, that's a very interesting talent to have. I once knew a guy when I was serving in the military that would play by ear, and he would kind of whistle out the notes before playing, and I was just in awe, and I couldn't do that. I played a little piano in music class in middle school, but I only learned like Axel F, I think, which most people learn in music class.
I remember that.
That was the extent of it. And I did play a little bit of the trumpet in middle school as well, and one of my favorite pieces was the Jurassic Park theme, and I couldn't tell you how to play that anymore. But
I bet it's still in there. If you tried, I bet you could still do it. It's like that muscle memory.
Oh,
somehow,
sure.
Especially when you learn when you're young.
I think the maybe playing the trumpet might be the harder part, because I remember it was something about the lips and the breathing and the blowing that's I think was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, wind instruments are tough.
Oh, they really are.
I tried to play flute once in 3rd grade. I tried to play flute at school and I passed out. So
oh my goodness, yeah. Those wind instruments, there's a lot of blowing. So if you're not regulating that breathing, you can get lightheaded.
Absolutely. I prefer stringed instruments.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You don't have to use the mouth.
Exactly. Then you can sing at the same time, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've done some singing and some bass playing yourself. You went on tour in 2005 with the Indigo Girls?
Yeah, I was playing in a band at the time called the Arts and Sciences, and they were on Amy Ray's record label, which was Damon Records, and I had played in another band that was also on that label, and we had the wonderful fortune, they were so kind to us, to take us out for about a week. It was maybe it was 10 days, I think, total. It was split up into two portions of the trip. And Amy's purpose was to introduce the bands on the Damon label to audiences that would be in their part of the country, basically. So, she wouldn't take a Georgia band to California probably unless they were already had made a name for themselves. So it was a very grassroots effort to go visit these places where you were getting some radio airplay on college radio and connect in person with that crowd. It was a lovely thing for them to do for us and for many other bands. A lot of different bands get little pieces of a tour with them, and they're just very gracious with their time and their capabilities like that to help expose people all the time, every tour. And so they're really fantastic people. That was a great experience and a lot of fun to see what it's like to be on a real tour, even if just for a short time.
Yeah, that must have been a lot of fun because they're Grammy Award winning too, the Indigo Girls, and they've been around for a while.
Yes, they have. I listened to them when I was a teenager, and I was enjoying. They had videos on MTV back when MTV had videos. Do they still have videos?
I don't think so.
I haven't watched that in a long time, but yeah, I love their music. I remember a trip up to New Hampshire that I took with my family. And I'm an only child, so my entertainment was always music in the headphones in the back seat. And I listened to a couple of their albums. And so later meeting them and having the opportunity to play music with them, if you've ever been to an Indigo Girls show, they always have people from the opening band come out and do Closer to Fine with them on stage. So that's really neat. And I had the chance to tell Amy at one point, I don't know if I ever told Emily, but just how much that music meant to me. And I have you connect music with memories and smells and images and things. And so that whole trip for me, that album is just the soundtrack of it. And it will always be. So it's really neat.
I know exactly what you mean. I often find myself searching for 80s playlists on Apple Music and songs I haven't heard for decades. It'll just come to me and the lyrics will still be there, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about music.
Yeah. You know where you were when you hear those? Do you still picture what you were doing? I love that.
Absolutely. It takes you back. It's people don't realize it, but it's an actual time machine. The music will take you back to a certain time. Yeah. So I definitely have my songs that will take me back to my middle school and high school days.
Yeah. That's something that I've been training in the Meisner technique recently. I just did a 6-month intensive at Drama Inc. here in Atlanta, which is a fabulous studio. And that was something that, trying to find those things that bring out emotion that aren't necessarily trying to tap into some kind of memory, like a bad memory or something. You want to relive that. But having a playlist of music that tugs at you, it either gets you really excited or it makes you very sad or pensive or whatever, can really put you in a mood for a scene. And I had a really good time going through my phone trying to find, what does this song make me feel? It was quite a roller coaster ride in the car that day. Figuring out, going back to all these songs from a long time ago, like you're saying, from the 80s or the 90s, that they're just sort of sitting there in your playlist and you don't really think about it. And then when they come on, there's that swell of emotion of some kind, which is really neat.
Yeah, I think there's one that elicits a kind of a, maybe not so much a bad memory, but it was kind of maybe not even a bad breakup either, but it reminded me of a breakup nonetheless. And I think it's been some time removed that I'm okay when I hear it. It's actually a very good breakup song now. But yeah, good memories or bad, that's what music can bring out. What can you tell me about Leggy Limbo?
So Leggy Limbo is a nickname that was given to me by a friend of mine. This was kind of a convoluted story. So the band that I played in on Amy Ray's label, Damon Records, was called the Motolitas. And we were an all-girl band, kind of garage rock sounding. And I don't know what it was at the time. We just thought that we had sort of a shtick and that we should just have nicknames. And way before this, in college, my friend who was known as Rip Thrillby was in a band called the Penetrators, which is a instrumental surf band. My husband is the drummer. His name is Dick Stechkin. And they all had, it was like a 007 James Bond operative kind of shtick that they had going on. Because all the different surf bands have little personalities. I mean, there are guys that wear wrestling masks and, like lucha libre masks. And, each one has their own thing. So that was sort of the Penetrators thing, was the spy surf. And anyone who played with them or was closely associated with the band was given an agent or an operative name and number. And Rip assigned one to me. I filled in for them once at a show playing bass. And so, but they were also friends. So I think I might have earned one regardless, but that was how I came to get my name. And my roommate at the time was supposed to be my twin. There was always this backstory to everything. And so that was where the name came from. And he did our album art for the very first record that we put together. And so I think we all just thought, well, we've got to just have Rip come up with names for everybody. And so each of my bandmates was given a Penetrator's name.
Yeah.
And it lived on. I had my license plate said leggy for a long time until I realized I was getting some funny looks. I'm like, yeah, no, that's probably not really what I want to put out there. But yeah, it was all just kind of a fun thing. He had drawn cartoon versions of us, and it was really fun. He unfortunately passed away, and he and his brother both passed away at different times, and they were the two guitarists in that band. So my husband and the bass player, Trace Luger, are still playing music, not as the Penetrators, but a lot of surf bands. They're very well known in surf circles, and so a lot of bands will do tributes to them, and they've gone out to California and played with some other current surf bands. And so it's been bittersweet. We really miss those guys. They were super special people. And the little things like this that are still a part of our lives that came from that time are really special. So I appreciate you researching that and bringing it up.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was really fun to kind of see some of the different names. It kind of reminded me of like the movie Whip It, the roller derby girls, and they all had like special names. It was kind of like that. So
yeah, definitely.
Limbo is spelled kind of, with a French spelling. So do you think leggy came from like Louisiana or maybe from France?
From France, yes.
Okay.
We were, and my twin sister, whose name was Luscious Limbo, which I always thought was funny because she's very tall and definitely was more leggy than I was. I don't know how I got the leggy moniker, but we were supposedly spies here in the U.S. from France, and I'm sure there was a bunch more to the story that I don't remember anymore. But it was just a lot of fun, and there are many people here in Atlanta. Even though the band was formed in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the Penetrators, they played here a lot. And so they have a huge fan base here. And a lot of those folks were given names as well. Bolt Actions, one of my favorites. And, oh gosh. And so Trace Luger, the bass player, has two boys, and they're, of course, Ace and Deuce Luger. So it's carried on. We're trying to carry on the tradition.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It sounds like you've been playing music for quite a while here. When did you decide to start your own business?
Oh, gosh. Well, the business, I worked as a book designer. My first job out of college, I went to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and worked for the university for a couple of years after I graduated at the University Press. And they were, at the time, I don't want to date myself too much here, but while we did have computers, it wasn't that old school. We were still doing things like waxing type and doing things by hand for the book covers. You send a design, you do the design on the computer, send it over to the printer, and then set type physically and have it printed. It was a very different process from what we do now. And I think the thinking was, how does someone do that from home? It just wasn't done. There was no remote working. But I ended up I had started a master's program and was not going to be at Alabama for that. And I really wanted to be able to earn some income. And the press was nice enough to say, hey, we'll try to send you some books and see how it goes. And I had all the equipment I needed. And I was just really lucky that it was that time where things were starting to turn and I could easily do everything remotely from wherever I was. And so ever since, I've been freelancing for them. I still work for them to this day, and as well as the University Press of Kentucky. And so I think that was really where my business started, as a freelance kind of opportunity. But I didn't start Dangar Design until the early 2000s. I had a couple other full-time jobs in between, and just realized that I could do this myself and have a much more flexible schedule. And I have 2 kids, so it was really great to be able to be in charge of my time a little bit better. Like you and I were talking when we first started this conversation about trying to balance work, life, home, everything. And it's difficult sometimes to find time for the things that you enjoy, which is so important. And so I remember when the kids were little, staying up pretty late at night, doing work or doing things around the house or doing something that needed to get done so that I could have the next day during business hours available to talk with clients. And it was stressful for a while there, but it worked out really well in the long run. I have a very flexible schedule and wonderful clients who, Indigo Girls being one of them, they are all always understanding of my, they value my time, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And they know I can handle the work. They don't have to breathe down my neck or set a deadline. I need it. I'm a very driven person, though, in that way. I'm very organized, and I don't like to procrastinate. So I think there are certain personality types that probably do better with freelance than others. It would just work out for me. But yeah, so I've been doing that ever since. And it's really wonderful having a variety of work, in addition to doing packaging design. I have a lot of corporate clients that are wonderful. I work for a lot of directors of marketing and work on their creative communications initiatives, supporting them with graphics and sometimes strategy. So it keeps things exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's why I enjoy doing these interviews, is because we get to find out a lot more about, the actors. And to kind of jump ahead a little bit, obviously you were part of Cobra Kai. And when I watched the show and your character, I was like, there's no way she is, supposed to be the same age as like Ralph Macchio on the show. Like, that woman is my age. The things they were talking about, I was like, there's no way. So, like, with you speaking about your experience and, being in this particular business, your business, I'm just like, there's no way she is in, you mentioned you don't want to date yourself. And I'm just like, wow, I thought you were my age this entire time.
Well, so. I don't know how old you are, and I'm certainly not going to reveal my age here. But yeah, and in acting too, it's been explained to me how important it is, especially as a woman, not to reveal your age and rather to work with a range of what you play, what you can believably portray. And so I will say I'm a little younger than Ralph, and I don't know how many years younger, but I am younger. But it's been really interesting to me, even before I had an agent and I was on Actors Access self-submitting for things like Cobra Kai. And you kind of put yourself in a range that you think you fit into. And then thankfully I've had a few mentors that have helped me say, no, you can play younger than that, or you could play older than that with makeup, or, so now I think my range is like 32 to 50 or something like that, which seems really crazy, but
I believe it.
I mean, I auditioned for something last week that the script said 50, but they're willing to see me. I'm willing to bring the performance, and then they can do whatever they need to make me look however they want me to look. So, magic of movies, right? So
yeah,
I hate
absolutely.
to limit, it's, and a lot of times too, I think that writers will have an idea in their minds of what a character looks like or what age they are, but then, or even ethnicity or male versus female. I mean, it could be, they think they want a certain type or person for the role, and then somebody auditions and brings them something amazing, and they say, you know what, we can make that work. That was great. And it's totally different from what the breakdown might have said. So I love that it's sort of open-ended in some cases. But yeah, I don't remember what the age actually said on the breakdown for Counselor Blatt. but I didn't care when I read it. I mean, it came to me via email because you put your age range in and it automatically sends you things that are a fit. And so
Nice.
I was a fit in some way to them, and I was thankful for the opportunity to send something in. I just connected with her right away. I loved it. I mean, the writing, as you know, on the show is incredible. So smart and so funny and just on point at every turn. It's great. And so it was really easy to read that and just connect. And I will say that it was funny when I got to set. I don't know what they had in mind for her look, but I did not audition with my glasses on, but I do wear glasses. And they were like, oh, we really like the glasses. Let's just keep those. And I thought to myself, what does this say about my glasses or about me?
Perhaps it makes you look more like a teacher.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I actually bought a second pair because my glasses don't have an anti-glare treatment on them. And there were a couple times when we were shooting a scene, they'd be like, okay, well, this time we're catching a little glare when you look to your right, just look down slightly as you do it. So it added another layer to things I had to remember to do in the moment. I thought, I'm going to get some anti-glare. I have a second pair.
Yeah, the show is great. And, you talked about the writing. It's a crime that they didn't get at least a nomination for the writing because I thought it was so great. It was so great.
I know. I'm so proud of them for the stunt coordination Emmy nomination. And that I'm glad that they were recognized. That was amazing in and of itself. But I wish that they had gotten more. There were so many different categories that they could have been included in. I thought, and I am a little biased, I guess.
Sure.
But, I like to think that that's not coming from that place, but they really were deserving. So.
They were, and there were a lot of other great nominations as well, and
absolutely,
it's just the first season, so hopefully there's more to come. We're already talking about acting and having played music and starting your own business. What made you get into acting? You mentioned you also started doing that at an early age.
Yeah, well, I guess my first. I used to do little skits all the time whenever my parents, as an only child, whenever my parents would take me with them to a dinner party or something, people had children, we would immediately get together and come up with some sort of skit to put on for the parents later. And that was always fun. I just enjoyed play in that way and really liked musical theater. I was obsessed with Annie and Cats for the longest time as a kid. And so I think even prior to that, like first grade, I got a part in our little class play and loved every minute of it. So there were little times here and there as a young kid that spurred me to do. I did some summer camps for acting and also for script writing. And we had a lot of really great opportunities in the community where I grew up. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And there's an amazing theater there, the Fulton Opera House. And I haven't been back in many years. I don't know what all the different actors groups are there now, but at the time we had a couple of really strong production groups that would bring actors, equity folks from New York to do lead roles and then hire some lead and mostly supporting roles in town. And so I was lucky enough to be cast in a production of Here's Love, which is the stage version of A Miracle on 34th Street. So Natalie Wood's character, Susan, when she was a little girl, that was my character in that production. And it was really special working with some of these New York actors and some of the really talented adult actors from Lancaster and the surrounding areas. And that was it for me once I was on that stage and full house and lights on you and you're singing and doing your whole thing. And it was pretty special. So I think just it was music that pulled me away. It was something a lot of my friends were doing. And so I really didn't have a lot of other friends at my school who were doing acting. We had a theater program there, but so I think that pulled me in another direction, but I'm glad that I came back to it eventually because it's a lot of fun.
It looked like you were definitely having a lot of fun. You had mentioned that you had previously been interviewed before, and I actually tried looking at like all types of Lancaster publications trying to find that interview, but a little
It's
unsuccessful
old.
in that. Oh.
I have a picture of part of it on my Instagram somewhere, but it's the Lancaster New Era.
Oh,
It was the
okay.
newspaper. And I could not even tell you what the date was anymore. I mean, it would have been in the 80s, but yeah, they took a terrible picture of me. Which, I don't. I'm like in the middle of a sentence or something. They didn't even wait for me to smile for the camera. But the same person who took the photo took my headshot, so I still have one of those. And yeah, they interviewed me for an article about the production, and it was interesting. We had some promotional touring that we did. We would go to different places around town and sing a couple of the songs from the show, and it was done around the holidays, so it was one of those feel good, everyone come bring your family. And so I think it ran for at least 2 weeks, and then a couple shows a day on the weekends, and so it was really fun. I enjoyed that, but it's a lot of work, stage productions or lots of rehearsals, and so film and TV was really different for me when I did make the switch. And in fact, my scene with Ralph, who is the consummate professional with so much experience, and we're standing there and they're going to do a blocking rehearsal, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And it was very much of a just, okay, we're going to stand here and then you deliver this line, and how about then they're mostly looking at how the camera is going to be working and lighting and everything. And all of a sudden they get done. I realize, okay, we didn't go over our lines for this really at all. This is really just stripped down to what's going to happen in the next, when we actually roll. And so you don't really get a true rehearsal like you do in a stage production.
Right.
So that was really interesting to me to see. It's just, the pace is so different. And I had done a lot of background because I wanted to learn more about film and TV from that side before I even tried to dip my toe in all of this. And so I'd been on a lot of large sets, but it's just being up that close to it is different. And having lines and a lot of lines in the cafeteria scene. A lot of it didn't make the final cut, but there's a lot more to both of those scenes. I was kind of hoping there would be a DVD with some outtakes, but I don't think that's in the cards, at least not now. I don't know what they might do with all the wonderful outtakes and blooper reel fodder that they must have. But they had me record what they call wild lines, which they can insert behind other dialogue in the cafeteria scene where I've been speaking, and then they cut to the different tables of the kids sitting and talking to each other. They use the wild lines behind that as though I'm still talking, and you hear it just sort of softly in the background, but their dialogue is in the foreground. And someone had asked me on Twitter, what is it that you say when it cuts to the girls' table? And it was one of my favorites is, instead of a geisha, maybe be a successful marketing executive. But there were maybe about 8 or 10 of them that they were part of them. It was typed up on a sheet, maybe 4 or 5. But then the rest of them, they had just come up with in the moment and handwritten on the page. I mean, that's how brilliant these guys are. They're taking in the scene and coming up with stuff that would work for it in the moment. And the last few that they had written down, I mean, I would have to stop laughing before I could record them. They were so great. But they're peppered in there, but they're kind of hard to hear because that's the nature of it. But it's just fun that they take the time to create, even in that moment. They never stop creating. It's great. I don't know if you want to jump into that yet, but talking about the question that everyone keeps asking me is the backstory of Counselor Blatt.
We will let the listeners wait a little bit because I want to find out more about you.
Okay.
But to kind of touch on you mentioning the supplemental material for Cobra Kai, I did see a tweet from John Hurwitz that there is a chance, I'm using air quotes, that's what he says, there is a chance for a DVD and Blu-ray. So we're going to definitely cross our fingers and hopefully that comes true.
Yes.
And you mentioned, well, obviously you did stage play as well. Previous interviewees, Hannah Keppel and Annalisa Cochran, who also did stage play and, are now doing television. Do you have a preference? Do you like stage play more or behind the camera? What is your preference?
It's on camera for me, for sure. I did a little production at the end of our Meisner, 6-month Meisner course. And that was a staged piece, part of a 1-act play. And it was a little bit of I don't know, reminiscent, I guess, of all the rehearsing and everything that you do to put that on and the audience being there. They're different. They're two different animals, but I really enjoy, I don't know if it's the hustle and bustle of the set or kind of that controlled chaos, all the pieces and parts that you can just look around and see how they're all coming together to make this thing happen. It's just so much more evident to me watching that on a TV or film set. There's obviously all that same stuff happening with theater, so many people behind the scenes and so much that goes into the production. But, and I know I haven't acted on stage at a level of like Broadway or anything. So I'm speaking with very limited experience there, but I just really like something about being on set, and I can't explain it beyond that. It's just, there's something really exhilarating about it and watching all the people work together. It's really neat.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing time. So obviously a lot of the listeners, they're here for Cobra Kai, but I have one more question before we get into that. Your character, Counselor Blatt, is so much different from something else I saw you in. There's a documentary show called Murder Comes to Town, where you play Detective Amy Moore in a dramatized version of this particular case. How did you prepare for this role? Because there's also interviews with, she's now Inspector Amy Moore, as I gathered from the show here. How did you prepare for that role, and did you get to speak with Inspector Moore herself?
I didn't. It was very much I don't know that they explicitly said, don't contact any of these people, but it was implied that we're doing this without, and I'm sure that they had already interviewed her and had her footage, but that wasn't shared with us. And maybe going back now, if I had it to do over again, I would have asked. I didn't know to ask, I guess, but it would have been really great to see her footage. All I had was a picture of her. And I did some research online on my own, but she had a lovely Southern accent that I probably could have been more true to if I had known that in advance. But I think that a lot of that is done out of privacy and respect for the families involved. And they just don't really want you reaching out. My character happened to be one of the law enforcement officers, but a lot of people are playing the victim or the victim's family. And they probably just do that as a blanket statement. Like, you just don't reach out to these people. They've had enough drama and pain. And that was actually something really tricky with this, that you get excited at the opportunity to portray something and you're glad that the story's being told, but at the same time, there's still people who are hurt by this and still hurting. The families are grieving for the loved ones they lost. There's the victims themselves, and the law enforcement officers who, in a lot of these cases, have solved the crimes, which is fantastic, but it still can't bring those loved ones back. So it's tough stuff. Yeah. And even I found in promoting it, when it came time to send out my stuff on Instagram and say, hey, check out the show. You want people to watch it and to remember those people that in each episode are featured. But it's also like, you don't want to come across as sounding all excited about your role, because it's not about that. It's about telling this person's story and honoring those who worked really hard to find the solution, and catch the killer. And, it's really, it's not fiction. So it's a really different thing. I was very grateful for that experience. And I think in a lot of ways, that's part of the reason I wanted to do the Meisner training. Keep talking about that. Sorry. But, because you do want to be able to portray someone, even if it isn't a real person, it's a real feeling or a real situation that someone has been in, and you want to bring truth to that. So, and I think watching it, you're going to sort of critique yourself. I mean, that's what we always all do, but being believable and honest, and those are all things that I hope that I was able to bring to that with her, and that I honored her in her experience of that. But yeah, I think it would have been interesting to have the chance to talk with her ahead of time. So next time, if I have an opportunity again, I would definitely like to do that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that episode very much. It's funny because
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually had seen you tweet out that, you were on an episode of Murder Comes to Town. I went on IMDb and made the mistake by looking up the title of the episode, and then I watched it, and I never saw you.
It's wrong. It's wrong on IMDb. And the reason I think for that is, and I think it was the network that switched the order of the episodes from what the production company had put forward as their suggested order. So originally we were episode 4, and they switched us to 3. So now they still haven't changed it on IMDb, and it's the wrong name. So the episode I was in is called Hellfire in the Holler.
That's right.
And it's not even on IMDb.
No.
We had a 5.4 that we're all connected to, but it's Friendly Foes, which is a different story. So yeah, if you're looking for it, it's called Hellfire in the Holler.
That's right.
I don't know if they'll ever change that on IMDb, but thank you for pointing that out, because it would be kind of difficult for people to find it.
I had to point it out because I watched Friendly Foe, and then I fast forwarded it a second time trying to find you. And then I went on your Twitter account and saw that you tweeted out the actual title of the episode, and then I watched it. So I watched 2 episodes, and that's okay because it was still a good episode, the other one. But for the ones that want to find you is episode 3, and was it season 5?
Season 5, yeah.
5, that's correct.
Episode 3.
So there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, it was a interesting episode for sure. The case I had never heard of, but it kind of not hit close to home for me. But I had served 10 years in the Army, and there was a time where I actually was in Camp Shelby training, and so there was talk about Camp Shelby in that episode as well. So that was actually kind of interesting for me to see. Was that on location at all?
It was that I think all of their shows shoot in Knoxville, Tennessee, and there are actually 2 production companies that I know of. There may be more over there that seem to specialize in the crime reenactment drama genre, which is huge. I had no idea. Yeah. People just love these shows. I've had so many people tell me, "Oh, my mom and I watched it. It's like our show that we watched together," and any number of, not just Murder Comes to Town, but a lot of the different shows that are on Investigation Discovery, and there's some on other channels too. People just really love. My guess is the solving of the cold case kind of thing. They like seeing that justice happen. So yeah, that was it was fun going to Knoxville, and we were on location in a lot of different buildings and places, but one was really beautiful. The scenes in the house where the parents lived, and they have a big front porch that there are a couple scenes that you can see in the show. And I don't know if it ever really shows the view, but oh my gosh, it was gorgeous, just up in the mountains. And it was a little, I don't know, we call them a farmette. I don't know if you call it that down here in the South, but big area of land with this nice little, almost like a log cabin, but newer. And it was a lovely place to spend the day. I only had 2 scenes, I think, that day, but because we were so far outside of town, we just stayed there the whole day. And it was actually perfect because I had gotten the email the night before through Actors Access about Cobra Kai. And I had printed out the script at the hotel, the sides that they send you for the audition. And I thought, okay, the audition was due before I was going to be back from Knoxville. So I knew I was going to have to tape it there. And I had enough downtime on set that next day to just kind of go off on my own in this beautiful wooded area and memorize lines. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, so that all kind of ties into each other. And so you came
Yeah.
across Cobra Kai through a website, and they sent you 5 scripts to audition for.
They'll send you the role that you are a fit for. I don't remember if I only submitted for, I think it was just Counselor Blatt that came across to me. But sometimes if there's more than one role that you're a fit for, you can submit to multiple ones and they'll just send you the script for whichever one they think you're right for. But in this case, it was just this one role, and it had 2 scenes with a lot of pages of dialogue. It was basically the whole scene for both. So I had a lot of memorization to do. I try my best. They're not going to be upset if you have to look down and grab a line from your script in an audition, but I do my best to try to be off book as much as possible. And so I printed the sides out and worked on them that day. And then my castmate, Michael Riley, who played Detective Martin on Murder Comes to Town, was staying at the same hotel, and he offered to tape my video for me for the audition. But the funny thing is, so for maybe people who don't know, when you send in a self-tape, you're supposed to have a pretty neutral background and decent lighting, and there shouldn't be a dog barking in the background. And, they want to see your face and see your eyes, especially, and be able to hear your delivery. So it's important to keep things as neutral as possible so that you are the focal point and it's all clear and good quality. I could not find a single wall in this hotel that didn't have crazy wallpaper. Or there was one room, I think the exercise room was the only room that was painted, and it was red. So we're wandering around all over the hotel trying to find a place to shoot this audition. And there was a tiny little corner in the breakfast buffet room that had sort of a striped wallpaper that was a neutral color. At least we're like, this is going to have to do. And the lighting, there was one light coming down from the ceiling right above where I was standing. And if I stood pretty much against the wall, I was fine. But if I moved forward at all, it cast this huge shadow over my face. And it was all I had. I've since learned I have a light kit that I take with me with its own little tripod, and I can attach my phone to it. And it's still not the highest quality, but it's good for travel. So I will never be in this situation again. But, I did the taping, and Michael was like, you might want to look back at this and make sure that it looks okay, because I think that these shadows are a little bit intense. And right when he turned the phone around to hand it to me, it said the storage was full and it was on 3% because we'd been on location all day without much of a chance to charge the phone. So I was like, well, you know what? I think that this is probably, it's going to have to do. And the performance was there, but the quality, I was so embarrassed. But luckily, casting had asked in the EcoCast that they send out where you upload your files, they had asked for us to include a note about when we were going to be if we were out of town, which I was, when would you be back? And so I had that opportunity to say, basically apologize for the quality of the video, knowing that it's not up to par, because you don't want to give a casting director the impression that you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And so thankfully, Bajo, who was the casting director, was gracious enough to look past that and look at the performance itself and give me the opportunity, because, I wrestled with, should I send this in? It's not good enough. The quality of it is not good enough. So I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else in that role, because you have such a great comedic timing that, again, Counselor Blatt, her and Homeless Susan, I think, are the 2 most adorable comedic reliefs on the show. And
yes. Oh, I heard your interview with her. She was great. Isn't that a fun character?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would love to see her and Johnny a lot more. But you're kind of the counterpart. It's you and Ralph that have some really great moments as well. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what was it like, behind the scenes, considering your character being a school counselor? Did you interact with, the students more, or was it with Ralph most of the time?
I had just the one scene there with Ralph, and he was very present on set because, as you know, he's a producer, so he was, even in our scene, very interested in a lot of the technical details going on. And I was enamored with how he balanced being an actor and his work that he was about to do in that, and then also paying attention to every other detail going on. It was amazing to watch. As I said before, the consummate professional, so nice, but also it was really clear how dedicated he was to making this show great. Everyone was. The writers, the director of episode 3 was Jen Salata, who was amazing to work with. I just, as sort of an aside from your question, sorry, but I'm struck by what an inviting, welcoming, happy set this was in general. I mean, I feel like every set has its own personality in a way.
Yeah.
And there was something about this set that just felt, just, I don't know, it was a joyous place to be. And everyone was friendly and supportive, and I don't know, it was really just magical. There's work to be done. Everybody's serious and doing their job, but everyone sort of had a playful side to them as well. And the work got done, and it was fun to do. And it shows, I feel like, that everyone's having a good time doing the work. I don't know. It was just really special. And I think that there's something that goes into making a set that way. And I don't know what that formula is, but they did it right for sure. But all the kids, which I'm using air quotes because they're not kids, they're young adults. And
yeah.
I think the youngest was 16?
Gianni, yeah.
And amazing to me how adult-like they are. I mean, they are there to do their work. They had a great time together, and everything was fun and smiles, and but they were professional and courteous and kind. And I also thought, being this sort of like, also air quotes, old lady coming in among these younger people, they were so welcoming to me. And you had asked about, what it was like working with them behind the scenes. All of our holding area was kind of in the same place. It had all the chairs there for us to sit in, but also the video village where you can kind of see what's going on. There were a few cast chairs there that at times we could just go and sit and watch what was being filmed, which I thought was really special. But yeah, so I would talk with Ralph, or I would talk with some of the younger people, and a lot of the crew. I mean, it was just really a great experience all the way around. But I will say I have a funny story. One day at lunch, which you may have seen this on my Instagram, one day at lunch, I had put my plate down, and all the air quotes kids and I were sitting at the same table, and I put my plate down, I put my phone down, I went to go get some tea, and I came back and my phone was turned differently, and I picked it up. I was like, what's going on? I pushed the button. I could see all these, probably 20 selfies that the guys had taken, and Sholo still had his skeleton makeup on, and Jacob had his little facial deformity special effect makeup on his lip, and there was a guy who I was sad that his piece didn't make the final edit, but he was a cowboy in the Halloween scene, and they had just all these shots, these selfies of the two of them or all three of them together and making faces super close up in my phone. And it was just, what a nice thing to do. It was fun. And it was a fun surprise for me. And as I said, I have kids who I realized pretty early on that I had seen most of these kids before on television. And thanks to my kids watching shows and recognizing, Jacob, of course, with
right.
Kirby Buckets. And we had seen Mary before, and the kids knew who Annalisa was. I had recognized these kids from TV, and they were all kind enough to pose for a picture with me so that I could show my kids, look who I'm working with. Isn't this cool? And they even made a little video for them where they called them out by name and said hi to my kids in the video. It was really sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they're all just the greatest people to work with. And I didn't feel, I don't know, alienated isn't the right word, but you think when you're one of the few adults in a group of kids sitting around, they were very inclusive. So I thought it was really nice of them.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Again, I'd had the amazing opportunity to speak with some of the cast members, and they've had, just great things to say about everybody, that had a part in the show. So, I wish I was in some capacity was there, even if it was just to hand people towels after a take, something. I would love to be a
Yeah,
part of it.
it is a really great group of people from, one side to the other. I mean, every single name on that list on IMDb is all, they're all just amazing, talented people, but also really good people that are kind. And I think that has a lot to do with how the show comes across. And the casting's obviously very well done for multiple reasons. They brought a good group of people together.
Yeah, and in very little time too. And as I understand it,
Yeah.
it was very fast paced in terms of like the filming and not getting a whole lot of time to really rehearse your scenes and just kind of doing it on the
Hmm.
fly.
Which I guess is typical. I mean, again, this was my first speaking role on a
Hmm.
production of this level. I've had background jobs on big productions, but not speaking roles before. So this is pivotal for me. But I think that's pretty typical. That if there's something challenging, I'm sure two actors might talk to each other beforehand and run lines or something. But in this case, everything was pretty straightforward. Especially for someone like Ralph that has the experience he has, this was nothing for him. It was easy.
You mentioned background work. You did some background, I believe, in the Vacation movie, and I haven't seen it. But
Yeah.
did you know Josa, who plays Kyler, was also in that movie?
Yeah, I think I did see that somewhere. Yeah, I went to that as a chaperone, basically, for my kids who had been cast as background in one of the Wally World scenes. And when we got there, they realized they hadn't cast enough adults to play the parents of these kids. It was going to look like a bunch of children were just running around an amusement park unattended. So they asked several of us if we would step in. And I thought, sure, this would be fun, because otherwise, as a chaperone, you have to wait in holding while your kids are on set. You don't get to be close to them. And as it was, we were shuffled all around different parts of Six Flags to emulate the different rides that they wanted to feature. So there would have been no being close to them. So it ended up being a really nice day because I got to spend the day with my kids, but
Yeah.
also being up close to all the action and seeing Ed Helms and Christina Applegate, 10 yards away doing their thing. And it was really neat. I think that is probably where the bug bit me again. But but I thought, oh, this is a great way to learn more, having come from a theater background, to learn more about what it's like actually on a set, because I needed to learn that. You can take acting classes and do a lot of different things to learn technique and learn about the craft, but there's just really no replacement for being there in person to see how it all goes down. And
Right.
so I did several things. I was a core background. Phoenix Agent was the title on MacGyver for the first season.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that was a lot of fun. And, so there have been several neat opportunities. I got to be background on Stranger Things, which was really
Yeah.
neat too. That show's a favorite of mine. And there were some. Sleepy Hollow, you can barely see me. My friends all joke, hey, you have a headshot, but what you really need is a back of the headshot, because that's what we're seeing of you most of the time. So it's either the back of my head really clearly or the front of my face super blurry. But I would sit there on these sets and take it all in and go, I think I could do this. I would really like to try. And so that's when I started getting back into training and took a bunch of on-camera classes at Drama Inc. And I just really enjoyed not just the work, but the community that Drama Inc. has created around the industry here in Atlanta. I've never worked in LA, so I don't know. But from what I hear, Atlanta seems like a much more supportive city, where, yes, it's still competitive and you still want the role that you're going for. But when the other guy that you remember from a class gets that role, you're happy for them. It's a very supportive, positive community here. And I've really enjoyed that. That makes it just really pleasant to be a part of it. And when you don't get a job, you're still ecstatic that project is being shot here in Georgia, and it's bringing jobs and opportunity to other people in our community. So I think that's really special about Atlanta in general.
I may have to take note, and perhaps a move is in my future. I missed out on, I actually was signed with an agency back in, I believe it was 2001, and I started taking some classes in Seattle and Portland, and, I had headshot and all these things, but then my unit got activated. I guess this was 2003, because I got activated, and the president at the time, George W. Bush, he, said that we were going to go to war with Iraq. And so I had to put the whole acting thing on hold, and it just, I never did anything with it. Even when I came back, and apparently I missed out on some background work as well, because I don't know if you're familiar with this movie, but The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro.
Yeah. Was that shooting in Seattle?
It was filmed in the Pacific Northwest, and they actually went to my unit asking for some soldiers to be in the background of some of the scenes, and two of my buddies were in it. One is my best friend. He claims he's in a scene, and I've yet to see him, kind of going back to the story that you were just telling. And he was like, no, at this timestamp, you can see me. And we're like, sure, James. Okay, I believe you. Looking back, if I was there for it that time, I wonder if I could have, been there. So.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, sure.
And
it was an honor to serve.
I hope that you'll have another opportunity, because it's like in your blood. You should give it a try.
Oh, I would love to. I mean, they film Portlandia here. Portland is starting to come up a little bit. I'm forgetting the title, but there was just a movie that just came out starring Ben Foster, where he plays a father, and there's a daughter, and they're kind of on the run somewhere. And that's getting some really good reviews as well. So maybe if the right thing, pops up and I'm free, I will definitely try to get on that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I recommend it for anyone who's interested in acting. And I even have friends who have done it who don't fancy themselves actors. But I mean, you do have to have the ability to react to something truthfully, believably. They want to put people on set that they can direct. So you have to be able to take direction and be able, as I said, to react truthfully to whatever's going on in that scene in the way that they tell you to. It might not be the way you might naturally think to respond, but it's a lot of fun, and then you get paid. It's not nothing. So
yeah. I think my wife can vouch for me that I take directions very well.
See, you're perfect. You're a shoo-in.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Thank you. The character of Counselor Blatt, I'd like to know a little bit more of the backstory. Sometimes, actors are given directions, or, sometimes they're just kind of given, their free range to add to the character. But, what is the backstory on the character of Counselor Blatt? And, did she attend school with Daniel and Allie, or, did she know him from the karate tournament from the first movie?
Very good questions. I've had so many people ask this, especially recently. You must have mentioned something in another podcast that piqued interest with the tournament or something, because I had someone on Twitter contact me about that. Send me a direct message and say, I really want to know what relationship your character has to these others and historically. And so I said, well, I can't tell you now, because I knew I was going to do this interview. And I'm going to tell them that they can now listen to the interview for their answer. The short answer is yes, Counselor Blatt went to school with Daniel and Allie, but she's a few years younger. Her older sister is Allie's friend, Susan, who was played by Julie Fields in the original Karate Kid movie. She's the brunette friend of the two friends that are always with Allie. And this was not in the script. This was something that the writers told me was their vision for her backstory. But most of the backstory of Counselor Blatt was right in the script, and a lot of it didn't make the final edit, so you wouldn't know it otherwise. But let's see. So in episode 3, in the dance scene, some of what was cut was me telling Daniel, reminding him that I was there with my sister when he won the tournament. And I revealed that I had had a crush on him by telling him how cute he was in his headband. And there were some great lines they had written surrounding that I was so sad that they were cut because they were hilarious. And again, the writing was just phenomenal. And in the cafeteria scene, that speech that I gave was actually much longer. And part of what was cut was I explained that when I had attended the school, I had also been bullied. I had bad acne, and the kids called me Pizza Face. And one of them had thrown pepperoni at me. So at that point in the scene, Bo Mitchell, who plays Brooks, peels a piece of pepperoni off of his pizza in the cafeteria there and flings it at me. But in the way that the scene was set up, his table was too far away from me for him. I mean, a flimsy piece of pepperoni just wasn't going to go that far. He was a good shot, but it,
Sure.
So the special effects team actually built this hydraulic apparatus to shoot pepperoni at my face. And they loaded it with dry pepperoni, and then they loaded it with wet pepperoni and all these different things to try to get the right trajectory. And we had at least 2, I think, takes that worked really well. And it would hit my face and kind of fall off and land on my shoulder. And I had a reaction to it. And it was so much fun. I was really bummed that didn't make it in. But so yeah, I think part of her character and her sort of being so misinformed about all things political correctness and appropriateness and everything that she tries to bring to her students is a little bit tweaked. Probably because of her background being bullied, and she's very sensitive about anything that could hurt or offend someone else, even if she's completely misguided in a lot of ways. So that's her backstory. And I think she still has a crush on Daniel. Even though
Clearly
Allie's out of the picture, Amanda is very well in the picture, and I don't know what that means to Counselor Blatt. She's an interesting lady.
Yeah, she really is, and I love that so much. The story that you just shared, and I wish we can see that. To kind of, I don't want to sound like we're patting ourselves on the back, but that is definitely a question that we talked about on one of our episodes of your character.
You did. I remember. I listened to it and I was like, wow, that was a really good guess.
And it's the line. Again, it goes back to the writing, and I feel it's so intricate that there's a reason that each character is saying something. And just a very little bit of dialogue with Daniel, she's like, I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, yeah, it's a bummer that you and Allie didn't make it. So clearly they knew each other back then, or at least she knew of him. And it sounds like she's kind of been waiting for that moment the entire time.
She has been waiting for her chance. And even though there still is no chance, I mean, obviously she knows this. He's married to Amanda and their daughter goes to her school.
Right.
She knows he's happily married.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's playing out in her mind that would give her any thought that she would have an actual chance. But maybe it was just all those years went by and she just really wanted him to know how she felt or something. Who knows? But that, didn't make the edit. So that kind of leaves things open for other interpretation too. It made me happy that people could still tell, even without those lines, that I had a crush on him. A couple people said that. So that was very flattering to me, because I thought, I'm just not sure that if that's conveyed, but I think it worked.
Oh, so, it definitely does, and suggesting that he could have dressed up in a Karate Gi. I think that says it all.
Yes.
I think it's great that people are reaching out to you and asking you about your character.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It's been a joy, getting like all these new listeners and followers and people interacting with us as well because of your guys' interviews. And I can't wait for season 2. So that way we get more interactions with listeners and we can kind of speculate more as well. One of our speculations for season 2, not that it would happen. And, we didn't hear anything of this, but we hope that Allie can come back in just some capacity, whether she's
wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, just, making a stop, just to say hello or something, because she's a doctor now and happily married as well. But how funny would that be for her to show up and Counselor Blatt get a little jealous, just a little jealous, and see something there,
There's some good fan fiction lingering under that, I think. I've heard about some where I get into fisticuffs with someone. I made the mistake. I mean, I don't know that it's a mistake, but of falling down the wormhole of reading some of the stuff on Reddit. I followed a link on Twitter, which someone said you're a meme, and I had to go see it. And then that trickled down into, oh my gosh, there's just so much stuff out there where people are taking this and running with it in so many different creative ways. And it's really neat to see. I didn't know that was a thing. So I've learned a lot. But yeah, there are just so many neat takes on how things could go. And if Allie came back, it would be interesting. I mean, she wouldn't technically be a threat anymore to Counselor Blatt's chances with Daniel, but would she still perceive her that way? I don't know. Yeah. And also she was her older sister's best friend. So I don't know. It's very complex. It's fun to think about. I think that it would be great if, I don't even know that Counselor Blatt will be part of season 2. We'll have to wait and see if that's in the cards. But I think it would be fun to have her gain some of the self-confidence and inner power she seems to lack as a result of her history and her bullying, and learn some karate.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any, you just shared that the scene with Bo Mitchell, was there anything else that was trimmed down, or maybe some other kind of behind the scenes stories that's worth sharing?
I think those are the only 2 pieces that I can speak to, since those were the 2 scenes I was in episode 3. Episode 5, I just had one line where I come in and pull Cholo down, Miguel, off of the table. And I guess he probably should have been disciplined a bit more for that behavior, but that may have happened off screen. We don't know. But there are definitely opportunities there for some speculation about, does he get in trouble? I don't know.
Perhaps he gets a pass because it kind of reminds her of Daniel a little bit back from high school.
Probably, yeah. And, there's probably also a connection with her sort of, I don't want to say infatuation. I don't know that she's at that level, but with Daniel, that he was also bullied. So I wonder if she saw some kindred spirit there in him and is impressed by the way that he found a way to combat that and rise above it. So I think that's what she needs. She needs some karate.
Yeah, we definitely would love to have her back. Let's start a little hashtag on Twitter, bring back Counselor Blatt. So we'll see if that gains any traction there.
Oh, I would love it.
So that concludes my conversation with Miss Erin Bradley Dangar. So I want to thank her again for giving me the opportunity to speak with her, pick her brain. She touched on the acting industry and gave some very great tips. Her stories were just, very, very unique. We've had, this is the 8th interview, and I think each person that's been on here has shared something different. So I had a great time speaking with her. I hope you guys had just as much an enjoyable time listening to her. So as I had mentioned in the show, let's get this campaign started. Go on Twitter, go on social media, and start the hashtag Bring Back Counselor Blatt. Thanks to Miss Anger again. Thank you guys for your guys' continued support. Ever since Tom and I started this coverage, we weren't sure how far we were going to go. We didn't even think we would get one interview. Interviewing cast members was the furthest things from our mind. But we have now reviewed all 10 episodes of the Cobra Kai show. We've had 8 interviews with cast members, and we couldn't have done it without the listeners. You guys, the guys who are watching the show and then interacting with us online. It made us go out and get interviews, and with each interview coming out and you guys responding to it, made us go out and reach out to more people. So thank you to the listeners, and your guys' support is gonna keep us doing what we do here, and we appreciate all of your guys' love. So if you want to and have not yet done so, you can follow us on all the social medias. We just created an Instagram account at Cobra Kai Podcast. We're also on Twitter at Cobra Kai Pod. There's a link on there somewhere that is a one-stop shop. There's a page that I posted on WordPress that has all of our reviews and all that good stuff too. And we also have a group page, www.pvh period Cobra Kai period TVAMB group, and you spell out the 2 periods there. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on any podcasting catcher app of your choice. TV Ate My Brain. There's a bunch of other TV shows on there covered by other hosts as well, but you can filter it out, and that way it just populates Cobra Kai. But if you want to get a hold of me on my other podcast account, it's at Podstalgic, and Tom can be found at The Drunken Dork. So thanks again for your guys' continued support, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.